there's been a lot of discussion about the Epstein files and the president's comments yesterday calling it a hoax. Can you clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
The president is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make. The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did.
Caroline Leavitt and Tulsi Gabbard just hosted what might be the most shameful press conference we've seen during this entire Trump era. It was a non-stop stream of deflection, doublespeak, and wild hypocrisy, an obvious attempt to bury Trump's connection to Jeffrey Epstein by floating some outrageous theory about President Obama, but it didn't go as planned because when Caitlin Collins stepped in and demanded accountability, Tulsi Gabbard buckled and Caroline Leavitt came completely unglued. We're diving into the full disaster, but real quick, if you appreciate honest breakdowns that cut through political spin, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. It seriously helps the channel and keeps this conversation going. Now, let's dig into the moment that shattered their entire defense. Let's rewind a bit. Tulsi was caught red-handed in the most hypocritical stunt we've seen in years.
You've long been an opponent of weaponization in government. How do you respond to criticism that referring Obama administration officials and even potentially the former president is just more weaponization and this is a potential race to the bottom?
I think that's a very disrespectful attack on the American people who deserve the truth. They deserve to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic, which has been undermined by President Obama through his direction of this manufactured fake intelligence document, knowing that it was filled with lies and knowing that it would and could then be used for all of the actions that came after.
Carolyn, and I would just add, there needs to be accountability for that weaponization, Phil, that we've seen. And no one has been a victim of the weaponized government more than President Trump, not just because of this political scandal. You all recall his house was raided. So I think, it's very disingenuous for people to say, how dare they speak of former President Obama about this based on evidence and based on intelligence when the former president of the United States, Donald Trump's home was raided when he was forced to sit in a Manhattan courtroom and many other courtrooms across the country for crimes he never committed when he was impeached and indicted, and the entire country witnessed that. That's the weaponization of justice. Now the president is back because the American people see the truth. Nearly 80 million Americans re-elected him back to this office, and he believes that we need to have justice and accountability, and I think the nearly 80 million Americans who re-elected him agree with that. Caitlin.
She's backing a man who's been whining non-stop about the so-called weaponization of government under Biden and Merrick Garland. Let's be honest, barely scratched the surface when it came to holding Trump accountable. That's partly why Trump's running again. This isn't about justice. It's a revenge campaign built entirely around Trump's personal grudges. And now, out of nowhere, they're dragging President Obama into the mess based on a conspiracy that never even existed, just to distract us from Trump's Epstein ties. The absurdity of it is unreal, it's calculated, it's desperate, and it's no coincidence. Let's get real for a second. Tulsi Gabbard stood up there acting clueless. She's unaware of Trump's long history with Epstein. Really? After all the headlines, the photos, the footage, we even did a video where Trump literally called him Mysterious Jeff, his best buddy. Trump himself joked about Epstein's obsession with young women. It's not hidden, it's public. And Tulsi's acting like this is new information. Come on, this isn't just political theater, it's damage control. Tulsi is trying to protect Trump because she's already entangled in this chaos, and Caitlin Collins called her out point blank.
On Jeffrey Epstein, can you rule out that he was connected in some way to any kind of intelligence, either foreign or domestic?
I haven't seen any evidence or information that reflects that. If anything comes before me that changes that in any way, support the president's statement loud and clear. If any credible evidence comes forward, he wants the American people to see it.
Great.
That's when the whole thing cracked. Tulsi got flustered. Leavitt snapped. The part that really pushed this press conference into total meltdown mode Carolyn Leavitt's outburst trying to scold Caitlin Collins for asking a fair, fact-based question. How dare you ask that? She cried. Because it's the truth.
Two questions for Director Gabbard, just on this. Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Well, first, I want to correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Caroline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true. And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign. As for your second question, Caitlin, I think, who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that? Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera. The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to, and that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made. Does anyone else have questions for Director Gabbard, and then we'll turn it over?
Maybe because the lies have stacked up so high that someone finally had to pull the curtain. Leavitt went off the rails, completely forgetting that journalists like Collins should be asking tough questions. And yet, she acted like it was an insult to expect a straight answer. The hypocrisy is wild, and you could see it all over her face-panic denial. And a desperate attempt to spin the narrative. Here's the wild part. Trump's entire legal defense, right, now hinges on one thing: presidential immunity. They're arguing that anything Trump ever did, said, thought, or planned should be shielded because he once held office. But Barack Obama, he gets zero benefit of the doubt.
Maybe either for you or Caroline, the president said yesterday that Obama committed treason. Do you or the White House believe that the Supreme Court's immunity decision protects Obama from prosecution?
Look, I can speak to the president's feelings on this matter. He spoke to all of you yesterday in the Oval Office, but I also spoke to him about this morning. And he wants to see all those who perpetuated this fraud against our country, who betrayed our country and the Constitution, to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable. And it's been 10 years of this, and I would just add, based on everything the director has said and declassified, all of you in this room should go through it and take a look at this report and review the intelligence, because unfortunately that hasn't happened. And many of the people who perpetuated this hoax, Clapper, Andy McCabe, James Comey, and many others, have been hired by major networks in this room to go on television and continue to spew these lies.
It's laughable. And more than that, offensive to the intelligence of every single voter paying attention. Let me be blunt. I don't feel sorry for MAGA voters anymore. I really don't. But imagine being one of them listening to Trump, promised to expose Epstein's elite circle for years, and then watching his team pivot and say, actually, let's go after Obama instead. You're supposed to buy that. Seriously, it's all smoke and mirrors. There's no intent to reveal anything, just more finger-pointing, more scapegoating, and more fantasy-driven excuses. And every time they get asked for actual evidence, they crack under pressure.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Director Gabbard. You declassified these documents, if I'm not mistaken, Friday of last week, correct?
We released them on Friday of last week, the first tranche, yes.
This isn't the first time that President Trump has been president of the United States. He was president from 2017 to 2021. Couldn't the prior DNI under President Trump have declassified these documents? And why didn't that DNI do that at that time?
I can't speak to what happened there. There were several DNIs under the first Trump administration. President Trump faced many challenges from those who were working in the government who sought to undermine his presidency.
Think back. Trump was already president. He had the power. He had the Epstein files. 1 million Americans died under his leadership. He handed out pardons to his friends as he walked out the door, and yet he couldn't declassify or release one single document on Epstein. Now the right wants to know why Biden hasn't done it? Let's get something straight under Biden's Ghislaine Maxwell was actually prosecuted. That's a win. But Trump, he had 4 years and didn't lift a finger. This is what they do: lie, distract, repeat. And the only reason they're clinging to this, the Obama angle, is because they're terrified of Trump's Epstein history resurfacing. They know it's damaging. They know it's real. So they're spinning. But every time the truth comes knocking, like it did with Caitlin Collins, they lose their grip. And it's happening more often now. So if you're watching this and still supporting this circus, ask yourself, how many times are you going to get duped before enough is enough? It's past embarrassing. It's manipulation at its worst. This channel is always going to speak up when politicians try to rewrite reality to cover their tracks. And if you're with Usif, you're tired of the cover-ups, the fake outrage, then do your part. Smash that like button. Drop a comment below. What do you think Tulsi and Carolyn were trying to hide? And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We've got more truth to uncover, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.